Ladies and gentlemen, Roster Watch Nation, welcome back to the epic Roster Watch podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap, joined, of course, by Cody Carpentier here as we continue breaking down some of these Senior Bowl wide receivers. I think we're pretty much through them, Cody. Well, I mean, we're getting down to the end here, and that's not to say that these players aren't good. In fact, I think one of these dudes is probably one of the best ones that we've seen so far before we get into underclassmen and stuff like that. So guess you're coming from parts unknown today. Where the hell are you this time, man, on your tour?
I tried to find the best background I could possibly find, but I'm in Tampa right now. The wife's on another interview, so she had Tampa General yesterday. So we're down here for a couple of days, and then I'll make the trek back up, and I'll be headed to Dallas on Friday.
Of course, for Shrine Bowl stuff. Are you going to see Byron in Tampa? Or are you guys just going to meet up in Dallas next week?
We'll just meet up in Dallas.
All right. He acts like Tampa is so far away from Sarasota. It's really super close.
I was gonna say the one day he did come up, it was like 45 minutes, but it's just sometimes you hit the traffic bad. But yeah.
All right. Nice. So this first guy that we're going to talk. So I want to get this dude just out of the way first. This guy, Jha'Quan Jackson from Tulane, redshirt senior, 5'11", 185, unofficial. And look, it's with this dude. So, all right, as far as the yards per route run, 2.31, which is fine, but just in context with some of these other guys that we've seen, like we've talked about, Ladd McConkey, Malik Washington, Javon Baker, who we're going to talk about, Xavier Legette, even to a certain degree, guys like Malachi Corley, Brennan Rice, just in the yards per route run, not really great as far as that's concerned. And just as far as the overall production, one of the least productive within the context of his offense. 11% of the team receptions this last year, 15% of the team's receiving yards, 16% team receiving touchdowns. And it's like whenever you watch him and you watch some of these games back, you just think to yourself, well, to me, it's – and like always, this could be something where we get to the Senior Bowl and he gets out there and he looks like some kind of Jaden Reed or something, and we say, well, this, we need to go back and revisit this. But to me, he looks like a kick returner. He looks like a dude who's there, who's going to be the first one up for kick returns. As far as a receiver, some of the things that I had noticed here in watching back 3 of his games, I think that honestly, Cody, I think the most impressive thing about him is that he broke out at age 19. So we can say that that's at least one, that's one feather in his cap that we can, at least point to. Very gifted punt and kick returner, good open field vision, good top speed. I'm not sure exactly what I think Jha'Quan Jackson's 40 time is going to be. Would I be surprised if he ran a 4.41? I wouldn't be surprised. I also wouldn't be surprised if he ran a 4.51, but I think it's probably somewhere in that pocket. Good. Like I said, it's the open field vision that you like best with him, but man, this is a dude where 4 players on his own team had more receptions than he did in 2023. He is not a polished route runner. And he's one of these guys where, how we talk about some of these dudes like Brendan Rice and some of the others that we say, man, they just have a knack for finding these open spots in the zone and kind of wiggling in there and giving their quarterback some windows, making it easy on them. That's like it's kind of the opposite of what this guy does. He just doesn't seem as natural of a wide receiver as far as his ability to create separation with anything outside of top end speed. The problem is he played mostly exclusively out of the slot. And so, I mean, if you're looking at a slot sort of seam stretching type of option, I think he could be interesting. But for me, he's probably at this point the guy that I'm least excited to see at the Senior Bowl this year. That's just the way it is. I mean, all these guys are gifted. They're all very talented. They could be really good. But as far as my initial evaluation on Jha'Quan Jackson, that's kind of it. As far as the NFL comparison, I still don't really have one to this point. Yeah. I'm a bit flummoxed by this evaluation, and I know it's not very helpful to anybody. But to me, he looks like a dude who's going to be back there, the first one up, working with the special teams coach from from whichever squad that he's in. The first one back there, working on kick returns, punt returns during those special teams periods that we kind of tune out and go talk to our friends during. So I don't know. What do you have to say about it, just in general?
Just a few notes on him was that the American national team, the rosters, the I guess you can say the depth charts came out type of a situation here for the Senior Bowl this week, and he is on the American team. So that's not the team that Bo Nix and Michael Penix are on the national team. The quarterbacks for the American team are Michael Pratt from Tulane, Joe Milton, Carter Bradley, Spencer Rattler from South Carolina, but Michael Pratt from Tulane, his quarterback in college. They'll have that connection, and the receiving core, he's on the I don't want to say worser two groups, but the group that we aren't really personally, our rankings aren't as high on. So the other team has Baker, Cowing, Walker, Wilson, Rice, all these guys. The American team where Jackson's at, the best player they have, I think, is Leggett at the receiver position. Then it's kind of the rest of the group. So the situation will be good for him where Pratt's going to be there. And
which one's Walker again?
Walker's the North Carolina kid.
Oh, Devontae Walker. Sorry.
Yeah, Devontae Walker.
Okay.
Yep. So I think that's an interesting connection there. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I was just going to ask you what your comp thoughts were on him, because I really didn't have a ton of thoughts. I haven't really done my research on Jackson yet, but I think that everything you kind of laid out there kind of resembles exactly kind of what the receiving core is at Tulane. So I didn't really have much.
Yeah, we're getting a. Do you have any, like? I haven't looked at the offensive line yet. That's generally I'll get down there and there'll be guys that I notice and stuff. Sean Roberts is asking, not a fantasy position, but what O line are there any O line guys from this event that you're interested in seeing beforehand? For me, it's generally I just go out there and the ones that pop off are the ones that pop off. So
definitely, there's definitely a couple that I want to look at. A couple, Cooper Beebe's going to be down there, but mainly it's these tackles because there's conversations right now in the draft space, the mock draft space, of upwards of literally 7 or 8 tackles being drafted in round 1. I think Daniel Jeremiah
is the left tackle from BYU going to be there?
Correct. So the left tackle from BYU, but he's not really in the conversation to be in round 1 right now. But Taliese, who Daniel Jeremiah had top 15, is going to be there. Jordan Morgan, who's a first-round guy for him. Troy Fontenot is going to be there. That's all just on the national team by itself. So,
and that's the Washington guy?
Correct. And
the
Washington
thing is left tackle?
Correct. But they also think he can play guard. They think he's a potential guard guy.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it's just this whole tackle crew. And then on the inverse, like this is a super, super, super talented offense and defensive line group from both sides, from both teams. And I think that this week, as much as we cover fantasy, Alex, and I know last year and the couple years prior, we've had Cody Mock, we've had Cole Strange, and a lot of these guys, these nasty guys. Remember Olu Olutami, from the center from Michigan, like guys that pop. I think this week is going to be a ton of just big, hairy matchups between top 15, top 20 draft picks down there this week. And I think, that those one-on-ones,
man, you're going to see, like,
so fun.
I know we cover, Texas real closely and stuff, but it isn't just like the homerism or the fact that we've been so exposed to these guys to say, man, Byron Murphy, Tavondre Sweat, these dudes are these guys are pretty monstrous. So they're gonna have some. I mean, Byron Murphy was number 11 to the Minnesota Vikings in Daniel Jeremiah's most recent draft, most recent. I guess his first mock draft, and we've heard scuttlebutt from all kinds of people over the last month or so saying that Murphy could be a top 15 pick. So, man, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, as far as Jha'Quan Jackson, I feel like the jury's still a little bit out. I'm honestly almost just going to wait until after the Senior Bowl to put up his 2024 rookie preview over on RosterWatch, just because I feel like just watching the 2023 stuff, there just wasn't a whole lot of volume, and I'd just like to get a. It doesn't feel fair to the guy. We need
some of these guys, you just need a different look at them. Some of the guys, with the way they're used in their teams, they just need a different aspect of viewership and seeing them in these one-off situations, and that's exactly why some guys who we're going to talk about next, like Jordan Whittington. Like there's guys in these situations where there's a lot of talent around them, or there's unforeseen builds, or the offensive scheme is different, and that's what this event right here shows you. So I'll take it right into Jordan Whittington right though. But Jordan Whittington, 6'1", 204 wide receiver from Texas. Uh, a very elite prospect coming out of high school, 4-star in 2019 out of Cuero, Texas. Attended Texas all 4 years, and he was kind of the feel. And I know Alex does a show for Orange Bloods. He writes for Orange Bloods, and I joined him on a show this year, and it was just a lot of the feel for me around Whittington is that he became the Roshan of this group. He became the heart of the team. He became the lifeblood of it, and I think that that's kind of how it works. And when you look at the yards per route run, what you brought up with Jha'Quan Jackson a minute ago, Whittington's at the bottom of the list, 1.52. But I think that can be easily explained
That's a miserable
by
number.
one thing.
Yeah,
it can be explained by one thing, though. It is that how important he is to the team in the run blocking, how important he is to the team as lifeblood of just being there, being in the slot, and just being a part of the team. Is that it's not always for him about catching 8 balls a game, or being the star with 100 yards and things like this, things of that nature. It's just being in the right place at the right time, run the right route, doing the right thing. And I think that's one thing that I think we've learned with his time at Texas that he does exceptionally well. I think statistically his best games did come when the lights were the brightest, though. Oklahoma a couple times, Alabama, Washington. This is a culture builder. This is a guy you want on your team to build a culture, to do things the right way. I think his route tree is expansive. I think that it can continue to grow. I think he's a great framer of the football. He was 4th in the Big 12 with 13 missed tackles forced last year. And I just think overall, Whittington's a guy that you're going to want on your team. 40 career games at Texas. He eclipsed 60 receiving yards just 9 times. But those 9 games, like I mentioned before, Oklahoma 3 times, TCU twice, Alabama, Washington. He's as dependable as the other side of the pillow is what I wrote. I think Whittington, he dealt with some nagging injuries the first 3 seasons.
No, I mean he was MIA. I mean he was just hurt. He was a ghost. People are like, when are we going to finally see Whittington? It's like it wasn't until last year that he finally stayed healthy for a whole season.
Yeah, so I mean that's what I'm saying. He didn't play a full season for 3 years, and then the last 2 years he's missed 0 games, and he's been a pivotal piece to this offense. But in high school, he broke the Texas State record for rushing yards in a game with 334 yards and 5 touchdowns. That was held by Jonathan Gray, formerly of Texas, and Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson. 3rd youngest of 10 kids. Whittington dealt again. To me, it really can just be explained as the statistics aren't there. He did finish with 1,700 yards in his career, but he's used as almost a Swiss Army knife. And I think he'll be used as heavily in the special teams area in the NFL right away. He'll be used as a guy that's probably going to start out as the 4th or 5th guy in your rotation, a wide receiver. But the thing is I think that there's potential and there's upside just in him in general to become a potential Adam Thielen type, where he's just going to be used. Like I remember Adam Thielen, and this is always like my easy references, these Vikings, because I grew up on it. But when Thielen came in, he had back-to-back seasons with like 124, 174 receiving yards because he was used on special teams every play. And Adam Thielen came in at 24 years old from Mankato, Detroit Lakes, Minnesota kid. And the first play he ever made was a fake punt against the Green Bay Packers. Took it like 35 yards for first down to win the NFC North Championship. And the second play he ever made was against the Carolina Panthers. It was like a blocked punt. He took back for a touchdown. Those are culture plays. Those are things that guys like Whittington make. Those are plays and opportunities that guys like Whittington are in the NFL, and because they're grinders and they just stay and go. So he's not going to be at the top of the rankings when we come through here, but he's going to be a guy that when you look back, you're going to be like, yeah, maybe he was in the low teens, or maybe he was around 20 in the rankings. But when 5 years from now you look back, you go, yeah, it did make sense why Whittington made it through.
He's one of these dudes like, and I always remember I was doing an interview from the Senior Bowl a couple of years ago, and they were asking me about how you evaluate these quarterbacks that are there. And I said, one thing, and it was during the time whenever Jalen Hurts was sort of coming out and making his run during that time of the season. And they were saying like, what was your evaluation on Jalen Hurts from the event and all this? And I said, look, with Jalen, I discounted one thing, And that's the fact, he's another dude who I just had a ton of exposure to from just being down in Channelview. His dad's a coach down here. And I said, I'm not going to make the mistake anymore of not giving at least a little bit of credit to these dudes who live, breathe, love football, right? That with Whittington, I can legitimately say of all the players that I've seen come through Texas since I've been doing this, football evaluation stuff professionally, he's probably just my favorite dude. Like my favorite guy. Everybody loves Whittington. If you ask anybody about the locker room, the culture of this team, the culture that Steve Sarkisian's built in year 3 to get Texas to the college football playoff, Roschon Johnson was a big part of it. Bijan Robinson was a big part, sort of being the face of it. Those guys leave last year, and Jordan Whittington just completely steps up into the void and is the team's lieutenant, spiritual leader, all the rest of it. The reason he got the invite to the Senior Bowl is because all the staff does is, the way that they talk about him to scouts is just saying he's a guy that you need on your team. You just want him on your team. This is, the on-field product is shaped a lot by, it is a workplace. A football team in a locker room is a workplace, and he's the kind of guy you just want in your workplace. That's not to say he's not a good football player, though. I mean, he's like Cody said, elite prospect, a two-way prospect. So like he's rushing for all these yards, he's catching for all these yards, he's making a bunch of picks, playing safety, just a ball player that just loves it, loves it so much that you hear about the anecdotes from the people down there in the Cuero area and Port Mansfield and all that stuff that's just right there. And I think not Port Mansfield. Oh gosh, what I can't think of it. Whatever it is, right there on the water. You hear that like he left his football practices in the morning during 2 days, and he would go down to the middle school and go work out with the middle schoolers. And like he wanted to be around them. And like who in the middle of 2 days goes down and helps the coaches at the middle school go coach football? It's like he's a robot. He's also an incredibly just malicious blocker just a stock blocker downfield. And the thing that people always forget about Whittington is that he's gonna test in a way, like he's gonna open people's eyes up with his athletic testing, especially once it gets size adjusted. He's gonna.
What do you think he's gonna run?
Oh, I mean, he's been timed. He's been timed to Texas in the 4.4s, but I think it's more stuff like and I think it's more stuff like the vertical. That he's gonna it's gonna his vertical is gonna open up a lot of people's eyes. He's gonna test really explosively. So I mean, Whittington, he's obviously we're not gonna go after him hard in dynasty rookie drafts unless he gets to a spot where it's like
he's a taxi
better draft capital than we think. He's probably gonna be day 3, but he's a dude. I mean, it's like if you're in one of these deeper leagues and you get to round 5, I think you could do a whole lot worse than a guy like Whittington if he were to fall to a spot where he could kind of come up and assimilate through special teams and through his integration with that particular organization. Because no matter where he goes, people are just going to love him. And when you love a guy like that, you're going to want to get him on the football field.
I didn't have a lot of I couldn't find a ton of open field stretch runs where you could see him really open it up. I think that was my problem finding because it's a lot of short area stuff. There's a couple of fades where he goes up, but you don't see him really open it up. So that's good because I honestly what my projection.
I think your mic cable came a little bit out because it's yeah.
You good now?
Yeah, I think you're better now. All right, so that's Jay Witt. We'll see how he tests. I mean, if he runs 4.5s, then what?
I was gonna say, can you hear me now? I was gonna say my projected 40 for him is not good. I have him as a 5th round NFL draft grade, and my comp was Kendrick Bourne, but I had 4.63.
No.
So I think I need to adjust that.
Yeah, it'll be faster than that. Yeah. Okay. Laser time it could be 4.5s, but Jay was not running 4.6. No.
Well, I'm just saying, there was just straight up, this, but you've watched him obviously a lot longer than I have. But the what you see on the field is how I really gauge the 40 time, and it was just there's not a lot here. There's a lot of short area quickness and short area opportunities, but downfield, there's just you don't get to see him open it up. I don't think very often. So
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, let's talk about Javon Baker. Why don't you open it up with him? I'll tell you.
boom.
Yeah, man, he's good. He's
This
he's
is
he's
a
good. I mean, I'm deciding whether I think coming into the Senior Bowl whether he's the best. It's to me, it's between. Okay.
number one. No, I was just saying number one. That's all I was saying.
To me, just on film, it's between the film and the metrics and everything else. It's between him. It's between Brendan Rice and it's between Xavier Legette. And with Legette, it was just the explosion of the final season. But there's the worry that he's kind of a 1-year wonder type of player. Baker, man, he's the kind of guy that I look at and I watch and I say, dude, there's a lot of comps that I can see to this dude that given his play style that I think are very, very good. He's an exciting guy, but you're the one who did the eval. I just watched 3 or 4 games. I'd be interested to hear what your breakdown is.
I love Javon Baker, and to be quite frank with you, and the dog ratings aren't going to come out till probably April 1, but this kid's early in the clubhouse for top dog, Trey Palmer-esque in this class. And again, he's a different player than Trey Palmer is, but I'm talking about the mentals, the fortitude, how he plays, all those things. So I think he's early in the doghouse, or early in the clubhouse to be the dog of the year.
He's early in the doghouse.
Early in the doghouse. He is early in the doghouse. He's the first dog in there. Yeah. Projected 40, got him at 4.53, 6'1", 208. Javon Baker from Central Florida. He spent a couple years in Bama, didn't do anything. Went to transfer, tried to transfer to Kentucky, and something fell through the process, whether it was transcripts, whatever it was, doesn't matter. He ended up at Central Florida. Over Central Florida the last couple of seasons, that's really when he's kind of taken that next step forward. Again, the first 2 years at Bama, 15 yards as a freshman, 101 yards as a sophomore. Again, lined up with all the dogs at Alabama. It was Devonta Smith, Mechie, Waddle, Jameson, Isaiah Bond, Jermaine Burton. They were all there. So he's like, you know what? I'm leaving. I'm done. He goes to UCF his junior season, 56 receptions, 796 yards, 5 touchdowns, doubles down this year. All Big 12 honors as a wide receiver, 1,139 yards, 7 touchdowns. I think he lacks high-end downfield speed, but I think he'll test fine. He's not going to test explosively. Again, I said I had him at a 4.53. I think he's currently projected. I'm projecting him anyway for the late 3rd round of the NFL draft. We don't really have an age on him by any means. His market share is 23% receptions, 34% receiving yards, and 30% of the team touchdowns. He was a 4-star prospect coming out again. Went to Bama. Strong hands catcher. I think he shows patience before the ball arrives, shows his hands to before he shows his hands to the defender. He averaged 7.2 yards after catch per reception, which was 19th among qualifiers in the Division I. 49 of his 52 receptions finished in first downs or touchdowns. 49 of 52. Teams might have to live with more drops than they'd like. He had 14 over the last 2 seasons, which I didn't love. But I think the biggest takeaway that I had with him, and again, this can be said for a lot of people, but my biggest takeaway was if Baker put the same statistics and accolades up at Alabama, we'd be talking about him as a first-round selection in fantasy rookie drafts this spring. The difference is he left Bama, went to Central Florida, did the damn thing. And I was just thoroughly impressed with really overall how he plays in this Gus Malzahn offense. And they immediately upon getting to Central Florida, his presence was felt. 3 straight 80-plus yard receiving games during that junior season. His suddenness in and out of breaks is at a high level. His ball skills are second to few. He has an interesting career. It saw super highs and highs winning championships with Bama while not being on the field. Lows, transferring to Kentucky, going to Central Florida, but he's come through and he's just a grinder. And I think kind of a rookie season expectation, I think, is somewhere in that Chris Godwin type of a tier. I don't think he's comparable to Chris Godwin, but 34 receptions, 500-yard type of a situation. I think he's going to be a guy that translates well to the NFL, and he's going to be a guy that's usable as a rookie with upside that you're going to see potentially grow as the season goes on, kind of similar to a Rashee Rice, who is one of my playstyle comps. I have 3 playstyle comps for him. Don't do that for very many people. Usually it's just 1, maybe 2, but it's kind of a levels thing, right? So the first one's Rashee Rice, then it's Robert Woods, kind of Stephon Diggs is the top tier there. I see a little bit of Stephon Diggs in his downfield ability, his route running, and I think just like a tiered comp there. Rashee up to Robert Woods, up to Stephon Diggs is kind of where I see Javon Baker.
Yeah, I mean Rashi was my
High
comp too.
praise.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one that I added into the sheet, and after I watched him because it built almost exactly the same size and body, right? Like the size is spot on as far as Rashi Rice, and I could see him coming in and clear. I mean, well, I mean, maybe the Chiefs still do need help, but he's probably not going to go to the. He's probably not going to get Patrick Mahomes, but you could see him if he goes to a good situation with a good quarterback, him kind of having that same. I don't think he's doomed to have a Chris Godwin year one. He could come in, dude. He's the kind of guy who looks like he could come in and be a number one right off the bat. To me. Whereas I don't. I see that upside with Xavier Legette too. I'm not sure I see that upside of the year one, number one kind of stuff with Brennan Rice, who seems to me like he could just come in and be an awesome year one, number two somewhere and maybe work his way up to the number one. I'm not saying that I don't think he could ever be one. Right. I see a dude in Javon Baker that's just hungry.
Sick.
A ball snatcher, a real my ball kind of guy. Very, good economy of motion, violent out of cuts. Plays with a chip on his shoulder. This kind of, this kind of dude. And you get those kind of dudes and like, they're just dudes. Right. So I hope that we have a Senior Bowl performance here out of him that is not like Rashi Rice's was. Right. Because Rashi Rice, I think because Rashi Rice has become a different player at the NFL level than I even had him evaluated on film. Because I thought Rashi Rice was more smooth than Javon Baker, right? Rashi Rice felt a little bit more smooth, a little bit more delicate, whereas Baker's more of a murderer. If that makes sense, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of the way that I see him. Natural born murdering baller. Rashi Rice kind of became a little bit of that. He kind of took on a little bit more of that dominant air, and he has through the course of the last 6 or 7 games in the NFL. Basically, once he started getting above 55% snap participation, I believe in week 8, 9, Cody, something like that. But it's Rashi Rice. The one thing we will say about him at the Senior Bowl, he did get better every day of the week. So
he's gotten better every. He's kind of like the Jalen Hurts thing. Remember Jalen Hurts, like, at Bama, he was good, but then he started to get better. At Oklahoma, he was better and better. Every year in the pros, he's gotten better and better. Rashi Rice, the film was awesome. But then that first day from the Senior Bowl on, when he came in like 10, 15 pounds heavy, we were like, dang, this guy does not look good. Every day, every step of the way from then till today in the AFC Championship, he's gotten better every single – and I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, Baker, super excited to see him. We'll see if he has a week. We've seen with guys like Puka Nacua, Rashi Rice. Maybe, I don't know. There haven't been that many, but we've seen with guys maybe come to the Senior Bowl that we're not overly impressed with, but the film was still good. We need to keep that in mind with Baker. If he comes out and he's maybe not as impressive, we need to remember what we really like about him, but I think he's going to impress there during the week in Mobile. And if he does, that'll just continue to elevate him. And he's a guy, if he does have a big week at the Senior Bowl, Snowman, what's up in chat? He's asking how fast for the 40. I said 4.51 or so. They did. Yeah. He was tested at his, because at Alabama, they do all the testing and stuff, right, every offseason. And they said that he ran in the 4.4s there, but I think when he gets a laser time on him, it's probably 4.51. I'm not sure where Cody, where did you project him?
I have 4.53.
Okay, well, yeah.
So we're right in the same.
And that's exactly what Rashi Rice ran.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm not sure. Let me actually check that.
I mean, Baker's nasty, man. Like the good thing, also like one thing.
Rashi Rice ran a 4.51.
There you go. What small nuances that you realize as you're scouting these guys is just recognizing like patterns of guys that have massive games, and are they against the Tulanes and the Tulsas and the lower talents, or are they against the big teams? And one thing I noticed with Javon was, as soon as they went to the Big 12, big games against Big 12 teams, 3 for 113 against Baylor, 5 for 134 against Oklahoma
game,
against Texas Tech, like massive. And then he even played in the because he's a dog. He played in the bowl game against Georgia Tech, 9 for 173 and a touchdown. Just massive games and massive opportunities. Not a guy that is going to play down against better competition.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, with Witt, we've talked about Witt, we've talked about Jha'Quan Jackson, but I think it's most important here to kind of hammer it in about Javon Baker. So I'm going to ask you how you evaluate him versus guys who I saw as similar and who I considered as comps. So start in from I don't really see anybody like him in the he doesn't really remind me of anybody from 2020 based on size alone. Maybe, I guess you could. I mean, he's kind of the same. Geez, it's pretty close to. He doesn't look like him, but he's kind of pretty close to the same size as Justin Jefferson. But I don't think that's a comp. How about this one? 2021. How about versus Josh Palmer?
I would have taken Javon Baker
every day of the week. What about versus Terrace? What about versus Terrace Marshall Jr.?
I had Terrace Marshall's a little bit bigger, but I had Terrace Marshall ranked pretty high.
Terrace Marshall was 6'2.5", 205.
Was he? I thought he was like closer to 6'4", 6'3.5". Okay, that's good. Okay, that's a good one. I'm wrong. Terrace Marshall, though, I had him ranked way too high.
Okay. For the record, it would have been no question for me. I would have had Javon Baker over Terrace Marshall. And whether that's right or not is still very much yet to be seen. Right. Okay. What about David Bell from Purdue?
Baker.
Okay. What about versus Dontavion Wicks from Virginia?
Coming out, I would have had Baker higher. I have Baker higher. But that 2021 season, which is, I think, something we'll talk about forever with Dontavion Wicks, and we've talked about it last year too, was if we can get anything close to that 2021 season from Dontavion Wicks, the NFL, he's going to be a stud.
He's starting to look good. Right now.
He's a stud. And I think, Baker's really close to that 2021 Dontavion Wicks.
Okay. And then what about versus Rashee Rice? I would have during the process. I would have had Baker based on what I've seen so far ahead of Rashee Rice.
Pre-Senior Bowl, I would have yes, and I was high on Rashee because I told you coming into the Senior Bowl that my comp for Rashee Rice, it's pukey, but again he was projected for 187 pounds. His play style, I had him compared to Garrett Wilson, and I immediately thought I was wrong when we went to the Senior Bowl. But I was high on Rashee and I came down. Javon, I'm high on him and I don't see me coming down. So I think I'm going to end up higher on Javon Baker than Rashee Rice.
And this one's just so hard because of what we've seen, but you got to answer it. What about pre-NFL draft? And this is pre-Senior Bowl, of course. You can go back on it. These guys are, I know that they don't look alike too much, but they're kind of right at the same size. Quentin Johnston.
No, I'm good there. I'm good on the QJ action there. Give me Javon Baker 8 days of the week, 7 times on Sunday, and twice at the Senior Bowl.